All right, it's a little bit past 6 o'clock, so if we could get close to where we need to be, get underway here in just a moment. Gina, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Murphysboro City Council to order here at 6:04 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 26th. I would ask that we would all rise, and I'll lead us in an invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you once again for this day, and thank you for everything that you provide that we take for granted on a daily basis. We're so thankful for the roofs over our heads and for our families and for all the things that are so beautiful that we just come to become so used to them we don't even notice them. We pray once again for this meeting, Lord. We pray that it would be your will in the center of our minds so that we could make the best decisions that we could for the strength of this community and today, tomorrow, and for years to come. We pray all these things in your holy name. Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Hunziker, could you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes.
Here.
Alderman Curry-Witzman. Here. Alderman Brown.
Yeah.
Alderman Pearson.
Here.
Alderman McComb.
Here.
Alderman Urbis.
Here.
Alderman Bratton.
Here.
Alderman Bastian.
Here.
Alderman Campos.
Here.
Alderman Pittman.
Here.
Mayor Stevens.
Here. Okay, at this time, at the top of the agenda, we have the promotion of Patrolman Brandon Bauer to the position of Sergeant. I'd like to ask the Chief of Police, Ellenmeyer, to come up to the podium and talk to the council about this. I'm going to come around while he's addressing the council and join him in that area. And if Mr. Bauer would come up as well, I would appreciate it, and whomever else he is wishing to have come with him.
Good evening. Due to losing Sergeant Webb in the city of Carbondale to the position of the police department last week, one last remaining sergeant spot to get promoted. Brandon Bauer is first on the list. He'll be promoted tonight to sergeant. Brandon was at a very young age when he knew he wanted to be involved in law enforcement, where he took part in the Explorers program for the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Once he was employed and started his career for Dodge City Police in Kansas, he started there in December of 2016 until he came to us in October of 2018. He did a very, very fine job, and we look forward to him promoted and moving forward for the police department.
And before I administer the oath, I have to say that I have gotten more feedback from people who think that I have become a police officer at the city of Murphysboro. But I have not. So anyway.
I, Officer Brandon Bauer, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Police Sergeant according to the best of my ability. Congratulations, sir.
Make them hard to put on every time.
just want to say thank you to Chief Ellermeyer, Lieutenant Laughlin for this opportunity. I'm very much looking forward to it. I very much look forward to serving the community and Parks Department further. And I would like to give a special mention for all sports supporting here. Because of that, I'd like to take a moment and show her how much I appreciate it.
It looked like she said yes.
How do we follow that?
And I would have to think that incorporated in 1843, that is probably a first. I would think. I don't know for sure, but I don't even know where to go from here, but I guess we have to go on with the rest of the agenda. All right, thank you again. All right, we go to the consideration of council minutes from January the 12th, 2021, and I would entertain any amendments to the minutes at this time. Hearing none, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we go into the consideration of accounts payable registers. Included in your packet this evening, we have list 107. Entertain any questions on the bills? All right. Motion to approve the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us into our regular committee and commission reports. First up, we have Budget and Finance chaired by W.J. Pittman. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. Under old business, we have consideration of ordinance to establish PACE area and PACE program.
So there was one more revision that unfortunately had to be made. We had all the documentation today, and Richard Blake, I think, caught something that was not major, but it did have to be changed. And so I'm going to ask again for your patience to hold this one more meeting, and I'm confident we'll have it lined out by then.
Okay, thank you. Next item is discussion regarding regulations and zoning of adult use cannabis establishments. I kind of had, I guess, something I guess we could open that with and then just open it up to discussion after that if need be.
W.J., could you pull your microphone just a little closer to help everybody
better?
hear?
That's better. I didn't
Okay.
hear what you said. I'm
I said
sorry.
I've got a couple things I'd like to open with, and then I'd open it up to discussion for everybody else. So, from looking at the zoning map, so I think our intent is obviously to keep it out of residential areas, and then I know there's several of you that would like to keep it off of Walnut Street too. So, in my opinion, we could prohibit it or restrict it and limit it to the industrial zones, the highway business zone, and then the community business zoning, excluding Walnut Street from 4th Street to 22nd Street. And I believe that, you know, in my opinion, that leaves several business districts that, you know, don't limit it to being just out by Walmart, or, you know, if we limit it, I know we talked about limiting it, the zone that Walnut Street is included in, but that stretches out to some other areas, so they wouldn't be able to open up one down by the hotel, a couple other places. So, and then I've got some ideas on the fees, but I know we can talk about that after we figure out what kind of zoning restrictions we want to allow on that. So I'll open that up to anybody else that wants to has an opinion on that.
All right. I tend to agree with WJ that if we are going to allow it, I think that prohibiting it into those highway business. Ms. Hughes, I believe you may need to mute your microphone.
I'm sorry. I was looking at my map. Oh, I apologize. This map is big, you know, and it's smaller than my other one that I had. But I tend to agree with the what WJ did also. I think exclude Walnut Street and the Victoria and 22nd. I am okay with industrial and the other areas that who mentioned. Thank you, Mayor. I will mute myself now.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. Mr. Urbis, I know that you had looked at this some. I wonder what your thoughts might be.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I tend to agree, although I would not be as opposed to, you know, say from 7th Street on Walnut to, my main concern would be the downtown area.
Right.
Would not be as opposed to some other Walnut Street areas, potentially.
So you mean even decrease that area that we prohibited a little bit, make that a little bit
Right.
smaller?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's some empty buildings down,
Right. So I mean, if you're thinking
East of
9th
7th
Street
Street,
to
yeah.
to
Yeah.
20th Street or something like that.
yeah.
I mean,
The other thing is, you
We'll have
know,
that
there's
trouble
other
here down here.
licenses
Could
too.
you-
There's the
Should go over this
cultivation
again,
Yeah,
license.
what he wants to do? I'm having trouble with the hearing of it.
sure thing. Alderman Pearson just was asking to sort of reiterate. The question, of course, is when it comes to allowing the sale of adult use cannabis, marijuana in the city limits of Murphysboro, where do we want to allow it and what sort of zoning areas? And WJ has proposed that we would allow it in the highway business area and then also in the industrial area. And I believe what he is saying is that a specific prohibition from 4th Street to 22nd Street along Walnut to keep it out of the downtown. So that, I think, encompasses mostly the entirety of what the conversation has been.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Ms. Campos.
Yes, so what Alderman Urbas is saying about shrinking it to 20th Street, I misheard that.
Well, no, I forgot to add that in. Alderman Urbis just added in on the end of that he would be in favor of perhaps cutting down that prohibited area downtown to say from 9th Street to, what did you say, 20th Street, John? Yes. So you did not mishear that. I just didn't do a good job of reiterating all of it.
Okay, yeah, I think it's not a good idea due to the fact that the middle school is just around that area. And I don't think opticals are not good to put even if it's legal, still a drug dispensary nearby a school. So I am not agreeing with that.
I'd have no problem with it going all the way to 22nd. I don't think there's too many eligible spaces for
Right.
somebody to open up one in that last 2 blocks of town, regardless.
Well, I think we should have, exclusions for, you know, schools, daycare, you know, certain,
Churches,
you know,
yeah, we're okay with that. And we have plenty industrial area that we can expand to without really touching our downtown and really too much the community. So whoever wants, they will go over there and get it.
Dan?
My problem is that, well, there's a couple of problems. Everybody knows I oppose it, but every one of these areas are surrounded by residential. Every one of the areas that being proposed to sell the drugs, legal drugs, is surrounded by residential,
Well, I mean,
1 and 2 family or multifamily.
That's what our town is. I mean, for the most part. Your business districts are going to be surrounded by residents because, you know.
Yeah,
you know.
I just want to point that out.
Well, Well, I just think for clarity's sake, though, the highway business is not particularly residential. That would be the only zone that I would say is, fuller or has more areas where there isn't much development of a residential nature.
And there is plenty over there.
Mr. Irvis?
My other comment I started was that there's other licenses, like the cultivation license. I think we need to look at, what areas those might be allowed as well. Not just the residential, or not just the retail sale part.
Right. I mean, do we want to get into making different rules for those type? I mean, are there different?
Probably not.
Well, the cultivation centers have a lot of regulation in terms of how they have to be much further away
Yeah.
from residential. I don't think there would be any place inside Murphysboro city limits that would qualify for a cultivation center like they have at the airport, for instance.
Probably not, yeah.
So that probably wouldn't be something that would be particularly an issue that would come before us. I think that the dispensary situation is something that would be much more likely to present itself as somebody wanting to bring one to town.
So WJ, if I understand this right, B1 would be, there wouldn't be anything allowed in B1, basically? That's the gray area on the map?
No, that's not the way we discussed it. So B1, it would be allowed in B1 except for Walnut Street from, we proposed either 4th Street to 22nd Street or 9th Street to 22nd Street. So it would keep it off of Walnut Street, but so the area on, I believe it's 14th Street, that's a B1 district, and then where the new hotel is going and down that area of Walnut, it would be.
But I think one thing, Mr. Pearson, that's worth noting is if we implemented some of the same things that are implemented in our alcohol codes and in the state statutes when it comes to liquor, many of those distance requirements would likely prohibit some of those areas that are close to residential anyway. So there's a couple different ways that we can work this. I know it's not lost on you, it just comes to my mind in terms of that B1 district downtown and how it would interact with the adjacent residential.
And we could even put in there that, Walnut Street, a block north or south on either side in that district also.
Yeah, I think that would be something that I would definitely push for, would be that, Walnut Street, a block north or south, from whatever the boundaries east and west would be, would essentially be a prohibited district.
And I'm not as familiar with the state guidelines as I should be probably, but since we've been talking about this for so long, but does the state lay out, Richard, do you know if the state lays out distance from schools and daycares and that kind of stuff within their guidelines?
I do not believe that by the state they do that. The only distance that I know of, they leave it to local bodies by their zone to address that issue. The one distance that I know that the state does have between dispensaries, they cannot, if there were to be more than one dispensaries cannot be located closer than 1,500 feet
From each other.
So if you get one right in the middle of town, there probably can't be any
Right.
others.
King of the Hill. So, I mean, how do we want to move forward with, I guess we don't need a motion to really kind of give Richard some directive to what we want to look at in an ordinance that we can actually get on paper and look at, do we?
Mr. Bratton?
Does anybody know what percentage, if they sell $100 worth, I have no idea how much you get for $100, what part of that the city would receive? I mean,
The city can set its own sales tax. Richard, do you want to address that?
The city can set a sales tax up to 3% on the amount of gross sales. What the city-
Does anybody know what the surrounding area, like in Carbondale, what they've got theirs at, or Marion?
Carbondale is 2%.
Okay,
I don't know about anybody else.
yeah.
Now, I have to say that something that confuses me is that I trust that what you say is true, that 3% is the max that can be levied. But when I was looking today at the Illinois IRS website, actually have a website where you can search what various municipalities are charging on as a percent of taxation, and it showed Carbondale at 12.5%. Now, am I not understanding the numbers properly somehow?
I don't know. And I don't know if that's going to be in addition to cut out here. I don't know if that's in addition to their other sales tax.
So that may be the total
That
tax?
is what it is. They have their regular sales tax, and that's tacked on in addition to the sales tax.
I
That's
see.
an add-on, yeah.
Yes,
Okay. So the cap that we can place is 3% then?
correct.
Okay.
So if you sold $1 million worth, how much would that be, real quick? The city would get it 3, or say 2%, because we want to say,
Well, you get
10%.
so because you want to be competitive with 7 miles away, so at 2%, how much money would that be?
$20,000. $20,000.
$20,000.
$20,000. So we're going to pick up $20,000 for every $1 million that we sell in drugs and put back on the street. What in the world are we thinking?
I'm with you, Brian.
I'm going to try to be quiet the rest of the night till you
Well,
get off.
I agree with Danny. You guys all know what
Actually-
it is to begin with, but
I think Carbondale is 1 point more than Murphysboro on general taxes. So if we're gonna make money, let's talk money. Instead of going 2% like Carbondale, we will be at the same level and get a 3% for the city of Murphysboro.
And I will say, from the little research I've done, I believe a lot of those places, the prices are standardized, and I guess they take out, the change in sales tax doesn't change the price of it from one place to another. I'm assuming that the owner just takes a larger profit on a place with a lower sales tax than they would in a place that's levied the whole 3%.
Mr. Pearson, I know you had something.
yeah, I'm sorry, Gloria, I didn't hear you talking.
I'm sorry.
Well, you all know I'm against this to begin with, but it seemed to me like I'm like Danny. I don't know how many dollars worth of a town like ours would think about or would sell, but I would say $1 million, that's 20 grand. I'm not sure that it's worth 20 grand to me or 20 grand to our police department for the problems they're going to have. I'm just against it altogether, but I'm sure it's going to pass because we got too many people on the council that want it. But it just doesn't seem to me make much sense to me to. A couple of meetings ago, we spent several $1,000s tearing down to propose to tear down a building to get rid of the drug people that are in it, and then have drugs for sale on the street. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
The citizens, all we're trying to do is set up a guideline. The citizens okayed on the referendum to have this in town. So we're doing what they want. We just got to figure out where we want to let it go in. There's nothing to say that anybody's going to want to put one here in town.
Right.
I mean, what we're trying to do is get the guidelines. If it does come in, they done voted for it for us to allow it. So I don't know what we're discussing, allowing or not. Let's just get the guidelines down and see if anybody wants to come in or not.
Mr. Pittman?
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Bratton?
Does anybody think that these drugs, and I think I said, well, you got to be 18 or 21 to buy them, I guess?
Probably 21, I would believe.
21, or Chief, you know?
21.
Okay. Does anybody in this meeting think that nobody under 21 is going to get a hold of that stuff?
They already can, Danny.
Yeah, I know, but we don't have to be a party to it.
but you're not gonna be. Same thing with a bar here in town. How many people you think sneak in and get a beer under 21? If they don't buy it here, they're gonna go to Carbondale and buy it and bring it back.
Ms. Campos?
Thank you. It is not, and you know, I have been opposed to this, but like, my, oh my God.
Mr. Pearson?
No.
Mr. McCall?
Alderman McComb, thank you very much. Oh my God, and I'm not that old yet. But the citizens already voted on. And if we don't put the limitations on how this legal drug is gonna be sold in town, somebody is gonna come and say, they're legal, I'm not doing anything, I'm just gonna put establishment on Walnut Street. This way we are protecting, I think, our Walnut Street, our residential areas, saying, okay, that's what the people voted for, we're gonna respect that, you know, but you are going to do it, you're gonna do it here. And if the tax is 2% and the maximum is 3%, we will charge you 3% here. We are competitive with the area, but you're not gonna be near school, churches, daycares, and residential areas. So basically what we're doing is protecting the situation that we might not be happy with.
I appreciate what you're trying to explain to me, but Gloria, respectfully, you're wasting your time on
I'm
me.
not going to-
Because
I'm
you're
not
not going to
inviting
change
you.
my mind on this, because I think it's stupid. If the citizens got it on the ballot that they would no longer pay any kind of sales tax or property tax in Jackson County and the Murphysboro, would that be left like that? No, it wouldn't.
I mean, we would never put that on the ballot because it.
But if they got it on the ballot,
Motion.
got enough petitions signed,
Yep.
they possibly very well could.
But we as
So-
a council asked for it to be put on the ballot because no one could make the decision. So I have to agree with the citizens of Murphysboro.
Mike, if you could pull your microphone up a little
The
closer.
citizens of Murphysboro voted for it to be in the city of Murphysboro. I feel like that we can't go against what they voted for. I agree with Alderman McComb and I agree with Alderman Campos. I think that we need to sit down, make some strict guidelines to where it can be and cannot be. But I don't think we as a council, we ask it to be put on a ballot because nobody could make a decision and now we want to say, oh, we don't like it. We're not going to do it even though the citizens voted for it. That's all I have to say.
I think there was a decision because it was a vote and it was voted down. That's the only error I found in your
We
statement.
did, the mayor did make the tie and vote, I believe, that evening. It was 5-5 and the mayor made the tying vote.
Correct.
And so the mayor said he would bring it back up for discussion. I do believe we did bring it back up for discussion. And that's when we chose to put it on a referendum.
Correct.
And then the citizens of Murphysboro voted it in, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Curry-Witzman?
Since I'm the only one that hasn't spoken, I am going to go on record for saying I am opposed, but I do understand that if the citizens have spoken, we could at least do our due diligence to put the parameters in place so we aren't faced with, like Gloria said, a store just in the middle of Walnut, but I am opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Curry-Witzman. Barbara, have you had your chance to express yourself on this?
Well, pretty much. I think everyone pretty much knows my thought process on it. If they don't buy it here, they're going to buy it somewhere. They aren't knocking our doors down to get in at this point. You know, it may be a new point anyway, but if we went to the trouble of getting on a ballot and the people voted to allow the sale within the city limits, I think we just need to make the rules and the ordinance as to where it can and cannot be, and we go from there. And the first time around, I voted for it.
Russell, do you have anything you want to add?
I agree with Danny and Bill. I don't want it because I've been there all on our right for when marijuana is supposed to.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
So, I mean, at this point, do we want to give Richard the info that we want to, look at in an ordinance, and then we can look at an ordinance, next meeting and then make a decision from there? I mean, we're not voting on the ordinance tonight, obviously, so we should at least tell him kind of what we want to see, I would guess.
Well, anybody can make a motion. It's on the agenda. The discussion is centered around the allowing it in the highway business and industrial zone. There's sort of a debate about the limits east and west on Walnut Street and what those boundaries look like. I'm not going to send Richard to try to accomplish a task without some more definitive.
Right. So I would make a motion that we limit those businesses to being open in the highway business district, the industrial zoning districts, and the community business zone, prohibiting them from 9th Street to 22nd Street on Walnut, both a block north and south. I also had the fees. I would like to see the license fee for a dispensary at $1,500 and any of the other licenses at $250. It's kind of some based off research I did, so that's my motion, I guess.
All right. There's a second from Ms. Campos.
Yeah, but there is, before we go to the second, I want to clear this. We're talking about the perimeter being from 22nd to 4th Street and one block north, south, east, west from it, and commercial, industrial, and highway business areas only. I don't think in the residential area I would like to see anything of this. I would like.
That's not in my motion. So my motion is just to allow it in those districts that I mentioned?
Not residential, then the only two districts.
3 districts, industrial, the highway business, and community business district prohibited except, on Walnut Street out of that community.
And I believe the motion included 9th to 22nd.
9th to 22nd Street was my motion.
It's a community business.
I have a question. Did you say 1 or 2 blocks off Walnut Street, or is it that?
1 block north and south was my motion.
Was that the thing? Do you think that that's enough?
I mean, that, you're asking the wrong person, because that's me compromising, because I would not prohibit it on Walnut Street. So I think that, if somebody else, we want to vote that, if we vote no on that, and somebody wants to make another motion, that's up to everybody else.
I think I seconded your motion.
Gary, I believe, seconded.
Okay.
He did.
That's all I want to know. I was going to second it if I'd been there. Thank you.
So, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We probably need a roll call vote.
Alderman Hughes,
Yes.
Alderman Curry-Witzman, No.
Alderman Brown,
No.
Alderman Pearson,
No.
Alderman McComb,
Yes.
Alderman Urbis,
Yes.
Alderman Bratton,
No.
Alderman Bastian,
Yes.
Alderman Campos,
No.
Alderman Pittman.
Yes.
Y'all gonna do this to me again?
It sure, yes.
Here we are.
Mayor Stevens, you get to make the deciding vote.
Well, I voted this thing down the last time around because I didn't support legalization, because I just didn't. But at this point, we are kind of trying to hold back a tied, and I think we're fooling ourselves if I would vote this no tonight. It's not going to in any way decrease the amount of adult use cannabis in the community. And I was the one who said that, we should put this on the ballot and hear what people have to say, and that depending upon what the outcome of that was, that I would, follow that expression of the people's will. And so I would be hypocritical tonight if I didn't, keep my word in reviewing that outcome of that ballot initiative.
And I will add that if we don't get some guidelines in place, in 45 days or 60 days, whatever we voted on last meeting, it'll be allowed everywhere in town.
120 days.
120 days. So it'll be allowed everywhere if we don't come up with some guidelines by then.
And I'm agreeing with the guidelines. My problem here is allowing it in the community business area. I'm okay with the highway, highway business and industrial area. But I am totally opposed to the community business area. If that was the case, then I would like to see.
Well, it is being eliminated from the community business area.
No, he say no. He say that there are 3 areas.
It would
Highways,
it would be
industrial,
allowed
and
in some
community
portions
business.
of the community based on my motion. So
No.
Walnut Street would be prohibited
From
9th to 20th.
from 9th to 22nd.
to 22nd,
And
one
then,
block north and south.
there are, like I said, there are some community business zones that looks like on 14th Street, and then also down where the hotel is at, that area of Walnut Street down there.
Too close to school, churches, in one block, and that 14th Street corridor. Oops, and 1 block from the Walnut Street, we are at the steps of the courthouse.
Well,
If we have kept that in mind.
the one thing, basically, what my vote here tonight is to ask our city attorney to go craft this ordinance and bring it back for approval. And one of the things I am going to want in this ordinance is going to be those prohibitions, distances from schools, churches, residential, et cetera. And so I will vote yes tonight to have our city attorney move forward with crafting an ordinance based upon the guidelines that we've discussed here, and then we can continue this debate at a future meeting for potential adoption of an ordinance.
And I would point out, Mayor, I brought this up at the last meeting, since we are addressing zoning, once there is an ordinance, assuming there is that meets the council's approval, we'll need to go to zoning board of appeals procedurally wise, and go through their board for approval, and then come back to the city council for final approval.
Thank you, Mr. Blake.
So that motion will carry. That's the last item under old business. Under new business, we have presentation of financial reports by Scott Evans, Budget Officer. Scott?
It's a tough act to follow, Scott.
I was going to say, a merit proposal and not a spirited debate. This will be it. Okay, so what you have in the packet on the weekend are several reports. First one is the general fund operating expenses by department compared to the budget. We do this pretty much every month. So this is for the year as a whole. So as of for 2020, general fund, we spent $5,247,000, and we budgeted 5.5 million. So we actually were 342,000 under budget. There are a couple of big factors for that, which I'll get to shortly. And we actually, as I've been saying most of the year, we were pleasantly surprised by our sales tax receipts, and even the income tax receipts, for that matter. So those are obviously our 2 biggest revenue sources. Those were higher than expected, so our actual revenue was almost 5.8 million. And again, we budgeted the 5.5 a balanced budget. So we actually ended up with a surplus of $547,000 a year. So that's a very positive result. And honestly, I'll get to the other reports in a minute. Obvious question is, well, we've had a couple of good years, what do we do with that money? And, we keep talking about, the need for a building at some point, to replace City Hall and various things. So I think these monies could be good seed money for that process. So just keep that in mind. So getting more into the details, if you look at the second page, which is the healthcare report that we look at periodically. And this is actually one of the reasons why we were under budget in expenses by $300,000. We were approximately $120,000 under budget in our healthcare costs. So we're very happy with how our current plan is working, where we take on more of the small stuff through HRA, sure it's small stuff, and that holds our overall cost down. So we actually spent less than $8,000 per covered employee this year, which is actually a little less than the previous year. So that program is working very well. So hopefully we'll continue that at the next renewal cycle. And then we also, looking at the next report, we actually spent less on our salaries than we had anticipated. Of course, we always got a budget for what is there, so sometimes those things don't always pan out the way we anticipate. So if you look at the month, we actually spent more than budget the month of December by about $84,000, but that was because it was a pre-payroll month. And the important number here is the year-to-date, we are under budget by $141,000. So that and healthcare are very good chunk of why our overall spending was lower than budget. And just to also give you, keep you in the loop on where we are with loans, so we don't lose track of those. We currently have 2 existing loans in the general fund. The dump truck loan is down to less than $30,000, with 22 payments to go, a little less than 2 years. And the education equipment that we just purchased in 2020 is down to $43,704. So another 54 payments on that. So we just essentially started that in 2020. And then we currently have 3 existing loans in the water sewer. Of course, the water line replacement that we did in 2015 is down to $1,073,000. But we started at 1.4 million, so we paid off 300,000 plus there. And then, of course, the big one is the sewer plant, which we originally borrowed 14 million, 14.5, and we are now down to a little over 12 million. So we've been able to pay back almost $2.5 million for that. And then we do have the pickup truck for the water department, and we purchased it at the same time as the education equipment. That balance as 54 minutes ago is at 32,000 and change. So those are our existing loans that the city owes. And then the last thing I will bring up here is and I just brought this to you tonight. I haven't reported on the CD balance in a while. And so at the end of the year, you go to the last page, the value of the city's CDs was $3,657,000. Which is down a little bit from the end of 2019, mostly in the water sewer area, because we have been using those reserves to pay for things like the road, and that type of thing. So that's a little bit less. So and the rates are a little less too. So we aren't paying quite as much as we were, but we still our weighted average rate of return across all these CDs is about 1.85%. We still have a fair amount that are at 3% interest about 2%. So I'm happy about it. We're still not great, but right now CD rates are pretty pathetic. So anyway, that's the report that has. I do want to one point I want to bring up about the previous topic on the sales tax versus the marijuana sales. In the example of $1 million of sales, 2% would represent just the new special marijuana part of the sales tax. We would still get the usual things that we get when we sell any item, and that is our overall tax and a piece of the actual state sales tax rate. So it'd be about 4 quarters would be what we would keep off that money, which would be about $42,000 versus 20. As we're walking that way, I want to get involved, but I do want to talk about conflict here, so that's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, what's your opinion on whether we should have a? Thank you, Scott. Is there any public comment under budget and finance? Hearing none, we can.
WJ, I just, thank you for this, Scott. It ended up being a pretty good year. And remember, we built a $500,000 road too. So
Right.
which,
Yep.
for a while, we didn't know how we were going to pay for it.
Yep. Okay, we can move out of budget and finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, WJ. That takes us to Building and Grounds, chaired by Mr. Gary McCollum. Gary?
Thank you, Mayor. Under old business, we have nothing. Under new business, I want to bring up that Mr. Clover turned in his 30-day notice for mowing the cemetery. He's not going to do it anymore. So we need to get that out for bid. I think we got the letter maybe a week or two ago, so
Yeah, the letter came in at the 12th, which would have been, I think, the last council meeting day.
he's got about 2 weeks left under it. And he's never finished moving the dirt around in the graves, so he wouldn't do that. That was part of his mowing contract. So I'd just like to get that out for bid as quick as possible. It was usually around the 1st of April to the first 2 weeks of April, we'll get a mowing in out there.
I suppose that we want to just go with the same bid specs that we had used previously, or is there any notion to want to revisit those? Gary?
We'd probably go with, I guess, the same contract we've always had. We've had that same contract, Sandra, the whole time, haven't we? I mean, we had a lot of people interested in it the last time. One or two was lower than him, but they weren't in-town people, so. You want to get it out for a bid, Mayor?
I'm fine with that. I don't know if technically, so that we cross all of our T's and dot our I's, do we need to agenda that? Or is the 30-day notice, Richard, fine enough for us to go ahead and act on?
That would be fine. Your final action is voting on the contract.
Okay. Anybody else got any issues, any questions, concerns? All right, just direct Ms. Ripley to prepare the appropriate documentation to advertise that contract for requests for proposals. Or bids, rather, I should say.
Do we have any public comment on building and grounds? Hearing none, we can come out of building and grounds, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCollum. That takes Community Relations chaired by John Urvis.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business. We have one item of new business, consideration request for street closure for Oak Street Art Fair. I have a letter from the...
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Just want to note they're actually making 3 requests: the closure, the cleaning of the streets prior, and the hanging of the banner. So, all in favor?
Informational wise, it's always been very, very nice and very well represented. A lot of people come through it. It's a nice way to show off the historical preservation area. Also, there's a lot of nice artwork that's always displayed, and our scope. Last year I didn't do it because of COVID, so I'm very encouraged that they're going to try to do this again. I don't know if you guys made a motion. If not, I will make it with, they haven't.
Yeah, the motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? No? All right, that passes. I understand the Murphysboro Trap Team is here.
We do have the Murphysboro Trap Team with us tonight. I believe they want to address the council or make a presentation of some kind, so we welcome them to do that now.
Murphysboro Trap Team would like to thank Mayor Stevens, City Council, and Chief Elmer for allowing us to build the facility, which makes it possible for us to participate in this sport. We would like to present this plaque as a token of our appreciation.
Thank you very much. If you hold for a second, I'll probably get a picture here.
More, two. Thanks, folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very happy to have you part of the community.
Yeah, John, if I could just say a couple things. I appreciate their patience tonight. I know that they've been waiting since the start of the meeting, and typically I would have done this at the top of the meeting, but we had a marriage proposal, and I didn't want to get into clutter that up too much. So I don't know if I hope that there was nobody recording, because they invited me to come out and be a part of one of their last shoots, and I'd never shot. I mean, I've shot a lot of clay birds in my life, and public speaking doesn't bother me, but I'd never shot clay birds in front of an audience of about 100 people, and I think I busted about, I don't even know, 5 out of 25 maybe. It was pathetic. And so I appreciate them. I hope they'll invite me back despite my poor performance. So, and they had several that they're just very good, and it was a good group, so thank you.
Is there any other public comment? All right, we can move out of community relations, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Urbis. Appreciate that. Go to public improvement, chaired by Mr. Mike Bastian.
Thank you, Mayor. We have nothing listed under old business. We do have something listed under new business, which has been under old business before, is the discussion regarding the property at 17th and Walnut Street.
Mike, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I don't know if your microphone is on or...
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Under new business, we have on the agenda discussion regarding the property at 17th and Walnut Street. We have discussed that numerous times in the past. And I do believe City Attorney Blake has done some research on the ordinance of perhaps what can be or cannot be done with the property.
You're part of the team, or are you
Looking at where the property is at now, and of course, everybody knows at one time there was a yard sale. We were successful in getting that stopped. What is being done now, basically, the owner's position would be that he has a building which he conducts business inside. He has merchandise on stores outside in a fenced area, which will be allowed. I know he does have some items that are not within the fencing. I guess the question, if the city's going to do anything, are we going to say that's not merchandise, that's junk of some sort? We can't have a collection of junk there. Of course, it's the owner's position that his merchandise is a second-hand business. Don't know if we're going to strong ground to pursue a violation. At this point, what do you do? Other than he does have items that should either be inside of his building or inside the fencing.
And I do believe we had, just down the road, the issue with Mr. Beckman where, what's junk to some people is, worth something and can be merchandise to somebody else,
I think we did. I do believe we also, if I will stand correct if I'm wrong, I think we made him cover that fencing up to block that off, did we not?
No, he
We
used
didn't?
political signs, yeah.
With political signs?
Oh, yeah, they're covered though.
Is that how he blocked it off? Okay. So there's nothing, I've received numerous and numerous complaints, that's why I brought it to the table again,
If the council chooses not to do anything about it, and because we cannot, that's fine. Richard, Attorney Blake, is there any means or any way we can go about rewriting our current city ordinance where we can at least put, I'm not trying to run him out of there, but at least put some fencing up? We're trying to make the town look good, everybody's working real hard, and then we have that.
Under our current ordinances, we would have to take the position that white hazard is junk. We maintain an accumulation of junk in violation of our city ordinance.
And he's saying
Or is
it's
saying
merchandise.
Some other type of fencing, we would have to apply that to other
Right.
commercial businesses that store merchandise outside.
Right.
Go ahead, John.
I thought his building was basically not condemned or whatever, or he can't conduct business inside, so how is that related to his business?
I don't know that his business, I don't know the extent to which he would allow or not to allow to do business inside.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't, that's why he started having his yard sales, but I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
Mr. Kennedy, can you enlighten us on that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I guess I am.
I thought he was just using storage, his building, and having his yard sale outside. I haven't been in that building in, I don't know, 20 years.
Well, I think
You won't let me in there either, so.
what we are maybe remembering was previously one of the reasons why his yard sale was not lining up with city ordinances, I remember it, was because he was conducting all of his transactions outside. And there was something about, he was supposed to be conducting those transactions in the place of business under our city ordinance. Richard, does that ringing a bell?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, under our current ordinances, he cannot set up a cash register outside and bring up his sales outside. He must do it inside his business premises.
Right. So that may be what you are remembering. The most obvious thing to me is that the large, whatever it is, a modified trailer of some kind, box trailer, that has like a roll-up door on the back, doesn't look to me to have any sort of registration or license plates or anything on it. And so under our current ordinance, and I know it hasn't moved in a long time, that likely is in violation. I'm sure everybody's seen what I'm talking about. Mr. Kennedy?
Good chance, yes. We could probably do something with that.
Okay.
Maybe if it's I'm not certain, if it's an unregistered, unregistered, unlicensed vehicle. Would that be correct, Eric?
Right. I don't know if he uses that as an office trailer type, or if it is full on the road or not.
At least you can't see what's in it. I think the complaints I am getting, and I've received them, and I keep getting them, is how bad it makes the corner look. We have 17th Street, they're getting ready to open their new building next door, and then you have this. So I guess what I'm bringing to the council, or maybe to Attorney Blake, is there anything we can do to change the ordinance to require him to fence that in where he stores his merchandise, if that's what he calls it?
Well, I believe everything is fenced other than
It is, but well, I should say not a see-through fence, a fence that you cannot see the merchandise.
we would have to apply that to all businesses, not just him.
Right.
We're gonna do that.
I don't think we have any businesses with a chain link fence and political signs as a privacy.
Well,
part
that
of
political
the fence.
sign's not covering his merchandise. He just
No.
put that out there to
No, but, I
aggravate.
mean, the way that he displays his business is not on us to punish him or reward him the way that he does it. But if he's breaking the law having a moving vehicle, because a trailer is a moving vehicle or part of a vehicle without the proper paperwork, that could be a thing. But the way that he displays his business, like it or no, is.
Well, interestingly, I haven't talked to Darrell in quite a while, but I do have a working relationship with him, and I wouldn't mind trying to just talk to him. And he had mentioned to me at one time that he wanted to put up on his own accord a fence around that property. Now, he hasn't mentioned it in probably a year or more, but I'm happy to reach out to him and just try to talk to him and encourage him to get it, looking better than it looks, and maybe we can get some sort of progress that way, and then report back.
Okay.
I will do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That's the only thing on the agenda. Do we have any public comment? With that being said, we can close public improvement, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Bastian. Takes us to Public Works, chaired by Mr. Dan Bratton. Dan?
Okay, we do have a few items. Old business, consideration of expansion of wastewater infrastructure on Country Club Road. You want to give an update on that?
I spoke with Brian Ziegler, who is the engineer that's working for Mr. Burka this afternoon, and he expressed that Mr. Burka was willing to accept the terms of our agreement, or not our agreement, but our proposal, and that he was working with his attorney to draft a proposal that reflected some of the things that we had discussed just in conversation the last time, where he would pay for the upfront costs, and depending upon the completion of his project as proposed, we would reimburse him for those costs of the extension of sewer service. That would include him getting the annexation agreements with the property owners between Walmart and his existing property. So all I really know is that he is working with his attorney to craft an agreement that reflects that sort of reimbursement idea, and he said that he would, he didn't really give a deadline for when he would have it to us, but once he had that together, then we could review it and consider either acting on it or not.
Okay. I was told today that he has acquired the home out there of Mr. Phillips, but then he still has to get, I think, a property easement or buy property off of the people that live back in that subdivision where Dennis Rochin and a few other, about 6 or 7 other homes, to get his sewer line in. So I would suggest that we spend $0 until we see that he's got that. Now,
Yeah.
what I mean is $0. I'm not trying to, I know Reed Heller got plenty of work to do, but we don't need to spend any attorney fees or any other engineering fees or anything like that until we see that. I think that, well, I guess what I'm saying is, I would think that we would want the paperwork, a copy of the paperwork to where they have secured the right-of-way for all of that, to where they can get the sewer line put in. And then I think there also ought to be at some time a ceiling on the amount. And I probably am wrong, but it seemed like I thought that we were going to reimburse half of it back to them. But I could be wrong on that.
Well, we haven't agreed to anything.
I understand that, but I thought that was our proposal. Like I say, I could be very much wrong on that, but that was, but anyway, that's good news.
Yeah, well, I'll wait and see if his attorney ships anything back to us or not, but I just took from our conversation at the last meeting and expressed what the council had said that we would be willing to consider, and Mr. Burka said that through his engineer today that he was working with his attorney to craft an agreement that looks like that, and we'll see if we like it or not. And I agree with you that we should put a ceiling on whatever amount of money we're going to spend, so that, if for whatever reason those costs exceed an estimate, that's on him and not on us.
Yeah, we know for a fact just when something gets stalled for a year or two, the cost can really go up. We found that out. Okay, if there's no other comment from the council, we'll go ahead and move to new business. And I guess that's the consideration of Highway Authority agreement and the groundwater ordinance on North 14th Street, formerly the Lee's Food Mart. Is there anything we need to do on that? Yeah.
Eric? This groundwater ordinance?
It's just like the other ones we've passed.
But is it ready for adoption?
Yeah, Richard found some tax numbers were wrong, but that's been corrected, so yeah, you guys can go and vote.
Okay?
So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second?
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move up to the consideration of the bid for the annual cleanup. I think everybody's got a proposal in their packet from Southern Illinois Waste Container LLC. Pardon?
That's the same price it was last year.
Okay.
Isn't it, Sandra?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alderman McComb has just informed us that this is the exact same price as it was last year. So I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Have a motion?
Can I ask a question on that real quick?
Question?
I know it's the same price from last year, but, I mean, do we not have a breakdown of how much of that is labor and how, I mean, I just got a 20-yard dumpster for $370. I know a large portion of that's probably labor, but, I mean, they don't split that up into that. So, I mean, I'm willing to vote yes on it. It's the only proposal we got, but I just, if anybody knew that information, it'd be nice to know.
Alderman McComb,
What?
did you hear JW?
No, I couldn't hear you.
WJ.
He wanted to know if you knew the breakdown. Okay, I always get it back backwards. But I'm thinking about you.
This guy always beats everybody by $2,000 to $2,500 on this contract.
Okay.
And he furnishes 2 or 3 people and himself, and then we usually
So there's
have
several
backhoe
people down there helping load, so that's probably the bulk of that cost, then I would assume.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Oh, this is the good one. The consideration of the change order number 5 for the wastewater treatment road project. I think everybody's ready for this to be over.
Yep.
And I've looked this over pretty close, inspected this morning. There's one spot by Jackie's house that they're aware of that has not been fixed. Other than that, I don't like the amount, but do we need to vote on these separately, Richard? I think so. Okay. So I'm open for a motion or no motion, whichever way it is.
Well, hold on a second. So I just have to say that after all of the issues that we had with this particular contractor, is the consideration of the motion just to pay the full amount as it's presented?
That's the way it is in our packet.
But I would like to ask Mr. Sheffer, I know that you, I believe, kept track of days when weather conditions were such that they could have been working and they were not working, correct?
We do have, since this project started, we have days, when it was too wet or when the soil was too wet, they couldn't utilize it on those days, so we do have all that.
But are there days whenever the conditions were such that they could have been working and they were not working?
I'm sure that we can count those and that.
I mean, because the fact of the matter is I realize that there were legitimate challenges for this contractor, but for us, after all of the conversation we've had about this project, to just pay out the full amount, to me, my time debating it over the last year and a half is worth enough to at least hold back something. I mean, especially if there were legitimately days they could have been working that they weren't.
I mean, my thought on that is is the job completed 100% to what?
I think that, and I spoke with Mr. Sheffer today, he's aware of the one spot in the road that needs to be fixed, but correct me if I'm wrong, Harold, but I think Harold told me other than that, everything has been completed.
I mean, if we're happy that with the completed job that they've done, if it's close to, I mean, we've seen the changes in the cost along the way. I mean, just because they didn't work on the days that we wanted them to work, maybe we don't hire them maybe we don't take a contract from them next time, but do we penalize them for, I mean, it was still, they kind of ended up meeting close to our deadline of when we
Yeah,
wanted it to get done, correct?
Yeah, I can answer that for you. Number one, there was a deadline with penalty days.
Did they go past that?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
By a year.
by a year.
It was that long?
So, anyway, yeah, so, and that's the standard, pretty well standard on any contract, when I was on the commercial job, you did have a completion date with so much a day penalty. That's the reason you kept a log of the days that you could not work due to weather.
Well, then what, I mean, in our original contract, wouldn't it say what that amount we should hold back from them would be?
It tells you how much per day, and I don't remember what that was.
The contract is all based on the amount bid calls for $350 a day. Again, just keep in mind that's for loss of revenues for the city, anything like that. Our time on the job since, I think we took bids in October, if I'm not mistaken. But, really all through the winter, they really weren't able to work. So, and again, I'm not here to defend them. We'll present the days that we have and go from there. There were issues with, with dirt, but there were also days that they probably could have been working that they weren't.
Ms. Campos?
Thank you. I'm okay. I see that they're gonna give us some credit, and maybe, I don't know if it will be agreeable to the council to check about the penalty for as many days that they were not on completion, on target. But otherwise, I'm okay with pay them whenever they complete the job at 100%. If that little spot is not completed, I'm not okay with them paying them, because that little spot can be forget about it.
Okay?
So, not yet.
Okay. Is there any other council member that wants to, all right, I'm going to go to
think
Mr.
Mr.
Urban
Pearson-
first.
I just had a question, Harold. I drove it, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. Is there going to be a top surface on the road, a finishing service, oil and chip or something? Or?
The original plan was oil and chip, but obviously that wouldn't be done until better weather anyway. I did give a price to put the oil and chip down.
Was that part of their contract, or? Okay.
Okay, I think Alderman McComb's next, and then Alderman
Danny,
Pearson.
they, if I remember right, they was going to dump 3 or 4 loads of brush down there on us, and they ended up dumping 13 or 14 loads. Are we going to bill them for any of that?
I guess that's up to the council.
And where they dumped them at, you got to have a hole to dig it back away to get it to the burn pit. I mean, it's
I think
going to...
if you can quantify that, Alderman McComb, I think we can send that bill to them. If we can put a quantity, a dollar amount on that, we certainly can send that to them.
Well, I think if I remember right, they was going to dump 3 or 4 loads, and they ended up 13 or 14. And where they dumped them down there, they just backed up, didn't get them over by the burn pit. They just went on the other side, the east side, and dumped them on that hillside. I just think the way they've billed us for everything, we ought to be billing them a little bit too.
All right. Alderman Pearson,
Harold, if you were going to bill them for the days they did not work, would we not have to have that noted, that this was a day they could have worked and didn't?
Well, I think our resident engineer down there, he kept track of all the days. Really towards the end, when they were just doing seeding and things like that, he may not have been down there all day. But he does have those days noted.
Okay, well, that was my question. If we didn't have it noted, I wondered whose responsibility it was.
Well, I guess it would be their responsibility, but usually we don't put that responsibility on the contractor, because you know what they're going to tell you.
They were there every day.
I mean, this is not necessarily all just a weather issue also. I mean, typically you're doing a job like the sewer plant. I mean, there were days they got rained out, where they couldn't work. Then obviously that would be a day that didn't count against calendar days, number of calendar days allowed
Right.
to finish the job. But in this case, I mean, there were some days, I mean, before we actually added the line, there were days where they could put dirt down and then expose dirt, and then it might be 2 or 3 days before they could work again.
I have one other question.
Sure.
If we decided to take those days that they could have worked, say there's 20 of them, probably more than that, what's the chance of getting paid? I understand these things don't do well in court.
They don't, and, you know, I mean, when I first started working, liquidated damages were something that you very well could go after. Nowadays in court, I mean, it's improved many times, unless you can claim loss of revenues. If you were in a water district and you had 60, 70, 80 users that didn't have water because they were missing getting the job done, and you could go after that. Engineering fees that, you know, for construction inspection because the job is so long. You could go after that too. There are things, I mean, I think we've totaled it up. I'd be happy to present it to the council. If you want to wait till the next council meeting to pass this, that's fine. We'll get those days and see what kind of number we're talking about.
I'd kind of like to see some numbers, but I wouldn't want to spend any legal fees on getting it done.
And again, the spots they have to fix, I mean, they are 100% done. The spot came up after the substantial completion date is December 11th. So this spot came up and we have marked it and they will fix it. You know, but covered under the 1-year warranty, but I do agree with someone that says you're holding $96,000. There's more than enough carrot there to make sure that that's done.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Urbis?
Well, wouldn't we just be holding money, and then it'd be, you know, if they felt we were wrongfully holding, then they'd have to sue us?
Yeah, there's always that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna, I mean, you hold their money, they're not gonna, till they get that fixed, I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
Right.
I want to say one more thing, and then we can move on or vote or whatever. But Mr. Pearson, myself, Mr. Bratton had to meet with this contractor at the job site, and I don't remember when it was. Bill, it's been a while back.
I can't remember what I did today.
Well, yeah, but this is the only job since I've been mayor where the mayor and 2 city council people had to meet with the contractor to literally ask them to start working. And I asked them if they even wanted the job, and they sort of shrugged their shoulders and then said yes they did. And so if nothing else comes out of this, I just want to say it publicly that as long as I'm mayor of this town, I will never hire Sierra Bravo to do another job for the city of Murphysboro, period, because they just did not do the job in a way that respected the city's time or the city's money. And so we can pay the bill at the end of the day, but I was completely unimpressed with that operation.
I've got one more thing I'd like to say, and then we'll leave it. It'll be up to the council members to decide what they want to do. We're asking our engineer to get that to us before the next meeting. We're also wanting to, the city needs to find out how many extra loads of brush that they dumped on us. So I would consider holding both of these pay requests until next meeting. Mr. Sheffer.
I would want to point out the change order, which does not have to be passed tonight either, but it's more or less an as-built change order, so it is actually for a fee of $3,660.79.
Correct.
Yeah, we can accept that.
It's just all the quantity on the
Yeah. So what's the pleasure of the council?
Accept the order number 5, where they're gonna refund us $3,000 and some dollars, and then hold the other one until the job is complete and we don't clear the book.
Are you saying
They're 2 different orders.
you're making a motion to pass the change order number 5? Let's do one at a time, if you
Yes,
would.
one at a time, then.
Do we have a second? It's a deductive change order.
Second.
I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria.
Was that a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have that. Okay, the next one is the final pay estimate, number 6.
That one is to hold the payment.
And that would be $96,567.75. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Bratton, I thought you had just said you wanted to hold that particular pay estimate while we waited on information from the
That
engineer.
is what I said, but it's still the pleasure of the council, I guess.
Okay.
But yes, I think we ought to just hold this until the next meeting, till we find out if there's additional days, and also get our ducks in a row for how many extra loads that were dumped on us.
I'll make that motion.
Okay?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. I guess that's all we've got underneath that, isn't it, Pat? Next item on the list is consideration of the bid for the purchase of a truck for the wastewater treatment plant, and I will make mention that the old Jeep he's driving's got 190-some thousand on it, and there's 2 or 3 of the cylinders that have no or very little compression. So you've got one from teenchap.com, which is in Marion, for $37,038.60. You've got one from GMC. I think that's is that Offenburg and Carbondale, I believe, and it's for $29,951. Then we've got one from Vogler for $27,527. And it's my understanding that nobody has these on their lots. They will have to be ordered. So what's the pleasure of the council? I think we budgeted 28 or 29,000.
Let's make a
I have a
motion.
question.
Okay, Barb.
And Dr. J may be able to answer it, or Pat may be able to. Does this particular truck, like from Vogler, have everything on it that we need on it for a city truck? Because the last vehicle that we bought from down there that I fought real hard to get, we still had to put like a backup camera and all kinds of things on it because it didn't come with it. And it's required by law. So I want to make sure that if we buy this truck, it has everything on it that Pat really needs by law.
Can you answer that, Pat? I don't see any backup camera on this.
I'm not sure about the backup camera.
Can you find that out for us? Mr. Lee?
Doesn't have something better and Darren and I's trucks are 2018s and they are equipped and they're in the rear mirror.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, I couldn't understand you.
2018 that Darren and I purchased, they do come equipped. I think the issue with the last truck was that it had a utility bed installed.
Right. It wasn't a factory bed, it was a third-party bed put on that last truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat, I'd suggest if you call there tomorrow and find out, and if it doesn't have a backup camera on it, see if they'll go ahead and furnish that for the same price. If the pleasure of the council is to go that way. And if that's the case, I'd need a motion.
I make the motion.
Motion by Alderman Hughes, second by Ms. Campos, that if it doesn't have the backup camera on it, that they'll furnish it for the $27,527. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And with that being said, we can, public comment? Seeing none, we can come out of Public Works, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bratton. That takes us to Public Safety, chaired by Mr. Russell Brown. Russell's on the other end of the line, so I can work through these. We have nothing under old business. Under new business, we do have a presentation of Murphysboro Fire Department statistical data from 2020. I believe Chief McBride is going to make that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. As I said last week, I'm going to give you a little prelude. I'm going to expand upon our call data for the year 2020. We had a total of 665 total responses by the fire department. 309 of those were fire calls, including 32 confirmed fires. 356 of those were medical calls. We provided visual aid 19 times, 12 times to Carbondale, 7 times to either MDS or other fire departments through Mavis. We only requested mutual aid ourselves 4 times. We responded to 49 traffic crashes, and of those traffic crashes, we billed and received approximately $12,000 in spill-of-pay fees. Those fees are used to replenish our hazardous materials, equipment, training, and any equipment that we can reasonably relate to responding to hazardous materials calls. 51 times during the year we had more than one call going on at the same time, so multiple calls. We deployed our newly acquired rescue boat twice, and we acquired it mid-year. We deployed our newly acquired drone 3 times, and the newly formed sonar and dive team through Mavis, which we have 2 members assigned to it, was deployed 4 times, and that was in the last 6 months of the year as well. In reference to the actual fires that we had, that property total that we responded to that had actual fires was $1,831,000, just over that. We only lost to fire $150,300, which results in a total property saved of $1,681,000. That's a 92% save ratio that we had for our confirmed fires. Talk a little bit about our response time. Our average turnout time, which is the time from when dispatch notifies us that we have a call until the time the truck rolls out the door. So that's getting to the truck, getting geared up. On medical calls, we were out the door at 1 minute and 16 seconds on the average. For fire calls, we were out the door in 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the average. The difference is we have to put on additional gear to respond to a fire call. Our average on-scene time within city limits was 3 minutes and 42 seconds. That's the average. That's a minute and 40 seconds under the standard that's set by NFPA. The standard is they want you to be 5 minutes and 20 seconds on scene. So we beat the average, or we beat the standard by a minute and 40 seconds. And in closing, and I'll take questions if you have them, I just want to say that Murphysboro benefits greatly. We get it public. Murphysboro benefits greatly from having a full-time fire department. We have an ISO rating of 4. We maintain that because we have full-time guys and our equipment. We're maintaining our equipment. Now, I've talked to you about the ladder truck, and we'll talk about it again. We're getting ready to start losing points because that ladder truck, because of its age. Also, it would help us at some point if we could get back to full staff. They look at our staffing, but we're making do. But we're maintaining our ISO rating of 4, and that greatly affects the insurance rates for the citizens of Murphysboro. The amount of property saved and our response times would be significantly impacted in a negative manner if we didn't have a full-time fire department. So I want to give kudos to the firefighters, first of all, and secondly, to the telecommunicators under Chief Ellemeyer. They process these calls when they come in very quickly and get us on the way very quickly and allow us to be on scene in an average of 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and I think that's phenomenal. And I'll take any questions if anybody has anything.
I had a question.
Okay.
First of all, I appreciate very much the information and obviously the work done. Just what's a good intent call?
Okay, a good intent call is where somebody thinks they see something, or they say they see smoke. We had one the other day, somebody called in and said there was smoke coming out of the basement. We got there and it was a dryer vent or a furnace vent behind a bush. That's a good intent call. We get there and we arrive and there's nothing for us to do. It was a mistake on somebody's part.
And also under the false alarm, are those ever situations where someone might be arrested for making that call?
We didn't have very many malicious. I'd have to look at it. I think we only had maybe 5 or 6 malicious calls. We do investigate those. I usually do that myself, or sometimes the police department will not do that. So we can make those arrests. The other false alarms, like cooking smoke and things of that nature, once they are more than 3 calls in a year, we do bill $350 each time. That does not cover our costs. The average cost for us to roll out an automatic alarm is anywhere from $500 to $800 every time, based on our salaries of our personnel, and then if we were to annualize our expenses of our apparatus and fuel based on our number of calls.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Dan?
I see here, if I'm looking at this, and this is for year 220, rescue and emergency medical service is 53.53% of the total?
Yes.
Is any of that, I think we discussed before they were trying to get that to, we don't get any reimbursement for that, do we?
No. Most of those are the ambulance service requesting our assistance because they're either all on calls in Carbondale, or they're having a delayed response, or they need an additional assistance with lifting. We do not get any funding for that. There is legislation that is still being worked on through the State Firefighters Union, and hopefully at some point we may be able to bill for our response through the ambulance service and then remit that to us.
Have you ever thought about checking with the ambulance service and see if they're willing to compensate us when they call out when they need additional help? Or is that something that I'm just way off base on?
Really, we're not a fee-based service. The only thing we charge for, because we are tax-based funded under the law, is we're allowed to charge for hazardous materials because that is over and above, and we have an ordinance for that. We're not a fee-based service, and so the law does not allow us, because we are tax-based funded, to charge. Now, if they create that law that would allow the ambulance service to bill for emergency medical responders and then remit that to us, that's when we would be allowed to do that.
Okay, let me ask you this. Just say that they're busy, tied up way away from the area, and somebody needs an ambulance service and take them to the hospital.
Okay?
Does that happen?
We cannot transport.
You cannot transport?
No, we don't have an ambulance. We do not transport.
Okay.
We respond, and we maintain that situation there as best we can as emergency medical responders. The only thing that we cannot do is we don't carry drugs other than Narcan. We can't establish IVs. We can't insert airways and defibrillate, that type of thing, but we can't do any advanced techniques that the ambulance.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Thanks, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you very much, Chief McBride, for that. Yes. All right, is there any public comment on public safety?
Yeah.
Ms. Campos?
What happened with the old depot? The windows, they're not boarded anymore. The roof is kind of falling apart, and I heard that Mr. Chaldermose doesn't own it anymore. Do you know?
Well, I'm not allowed to say yet, but I can say that the old depot is in new ownership, which I think is going to mean that it's going to have a much brighter future than it had before.
Better than the past 6 years or so?
Well, from the, you could only go up from the gutter. So
You guys know something that we don't know.
Well,
Because I just see some heads
I
bobbleheading.
gave my word that I would allow the people who have done the hard work to make it happen to be the ones to make the announcement. So if you'd like, I can talk to you off the record after the meeting or something, but
I
I
would love to
just,
sleep tonight, Mayor.
well, call me tomorrow.
Take a pill.
Yeah. But no, I think the old depot's in
It's in good hands now?
good hands, and I think there's a bright future. It's very, very soon.
Drive
So.
Cardinal, get some dope, you'll go right to sleep probably.
No. I have a glass of wine.
Is there any other public?
Thank you.
Disregard that last.
You're very welcome. And is there any other public comment?
Look at your big smile.
All right, that takes us to personnel, chaired by Ms. Barbara Hughes. Barb, do you have anything you want to add here?
Not really. I do have a little update. I have met one time with the hope that the representatives. We have another meeting scheduled on the 3rd of February with the whole group. Hopefully at that point I can give all of you kind of update. We seem to be going very well. I also would like to, not there to do it, but congratulate Frederick Meyer Bauer for his well-deserved promotion. We'll tell you, when he comes to my house to deliver, I call him Little Girl. And I don't know if that's the humor in it. Anyway, I congratulate him, and if he's not still there, I would love for Steve Meyer to pay that to complete. Also, there, we have been updated on the mediation process of the Public Works Department that you will need to share.
We did have a mediation session with Public Works that was, I guess, a good enough conversation, but ultimately the outcome of that mediation session was that I received an email today from Charlie Ferguson with the laborers, and the Public Works Union has agreed to the city's position on the particular item that we were debating. And so I just got that email in today. I'm going to be sending that contract out to the city council for your review, and then I suspect we can have a vote on that contract at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any other business. Is there any public comment or personnel? Hearing none, I think we can get out of it.
All right, thank you very much. I was meant to mention this while Chief McBride was speaking a moment ago, but I know that Bobby Alexander was recognized, I think last week by Channel 3, and there was a story done about his good work and service in the fire department and for the city. Yes, Mr. McBride?
He was recognized by the Murphysboro Elks Lodge.
Recognized by the Elks Lodge. Thank you for reminding me of that. And so I wanted to, as always, thank him for his work and highlight that recognition.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad you said that. I had forgotten to say that. I went to that little ceremony, and we all should be so proud of Bobby. He is such a good employee and great firefighter. And if we ever see him, anybody see him, thank for his service. Thanks, Mayor.
I also wanted to mention this evening that the Taste of Chocolate event, the virtual event that we have sponsored each year, I did get an email from the Executive Director, John Pfeiffer, and if anyone is interested in attending that virtual event, please email me or reach out to me, and I can make sure to get you a link to connect to that event. I know I didn't have anything on the mayor's report, and I keep going on. I also wanted to thank Adam Cripps and for all of the work that he has done in helping to work with the railroad in the rehabilitation of that property across from the Logan Museum. That renovation is just outstanding. I know that they had poured a parking area for the Logan Museum this week, and that property looks better than I could have ever imagined that it would look. And so there's that. I also lastly want to highlight there is, I believe in all your packets, an invitation. The Jackson Growth Alliance is having a virtual event on February the 8th. They're wanting to sort of talk about the things that they are doing and hope to do, and so I encourage people to attend that. So that's everything that I have. With that, I will go to council member requests, and I will go to Ms. Hughes.
I have nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Curry-Witzman.
I don't have anything.
Mr. Brown.
Nothing.
Mr. Pearson.
I have a little question on the North 19th Street junkyard. What are we doing down there, Eric? I don't see anything happening.
Yeah, in accordance, the violation that was noticed up about falls under the zoning code. He has two procedural steps that he's entitled to go through under our zoning code. One is to have a meeting with the zoning administrator. We have a telephone conference call set up between Mr. Cripps. He's represented by an attorney out of Belleville. We have a conference call set up with he and his attorney tomorrow. Mr. Cripps has also filed an appeal to the zoning board of appeals, which is also a procedural step. So we will have to notice up a hearing before the zoning board of appeals to where he can present his reasons for why he's not believing he's in violation of city code to the zoning board of appeals. While both procedural steps are ongoing, the city, by our city code, there's a stay of any further proceedings in pursuing any citations for violation of city code against him. So we're going through both procedural steps.
Okay. That's all.
On that same note, I was informed by a resident that there has been complaints made to the Secretary of State's office regarding licensing with that business, and also to the Environmental Protection Agency regarding issues with that property as well. So that's sort of outside what we are doing as a city and the legal process, but I know that that is also something that's going on in the background as well. Mr. McComb.
Nothing.
Clerk Hunziker.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Urbis.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Bratton.
Nothing.
Mr. Bastian.
I have nothing.
Ms. Campos.
Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Mr. Pittman.
I double-checked backup camera is standard equipment on that truck that Pat was bid on from Bogan.
Okay.
It's standard?
Yeah, it's standard.
It's included.
So does he have,
It means it's included.
so does that mean that he has, or who calls over there and orders it or whatever from there?
Do I just call you WJ?
No, you'd want to call Tim Hirsch.
Okay.
Now, assuming Pat would do that once, I mean, we approved that bid, so Pat would just start that process.
What I'm saying is, he's already got 2 or 3 cylinders on that thing that have almost zero or very little compression on what he's driving, so we need to do something.
Right. I'd say, I mean,
Tomorrow morning.
it could get ordered as soon as tomorrow morning, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think we already made that motion, didn't we?
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that, and who's going to order it? Is that Sanders, is that Pat, or who?
You.
Pat, would you make that call? Thank you.
That's all I had.
Anything else, Mr. Pittman?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to department head requests. I'll go to Chief Ellermeyer. I'll go to Chief McBride. Mr. Lee. Mr. Mills, are you there? I do not see him on the call.
Could you come up here so we can hear you, Tim, please? Or maybe it's just me that can't hear. Put his battery in.
You'll have to turn that microphone on the bottom, Tim. I know it was shut off.
I can hear you now, yes.
So, Darren has an employee in his department that fell ill, seriously ill.
some nice thoughts and prayers for him and his family. And I'd be happy to give you details after the meeting.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. You can tell me after the meeting. I think everybody else heard you, Tim.
Yes, I heard you. There's an employee in the street department who's fallen ill with a very serious illness, and I think Mr. Mills was going to pass along that information. Tim, is that right?
I want to speak for it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kennedy. Harold Sheffer. Scott Evans. Mr. Gladson. I don't believe Mr. Mills is with us. Ms. Ripley. Attorney Blake. Ms. Volley. All right. Mr. Banwaring.
Nothing.
And I think that's everybody. And we do have to, unfortunately, have an executive session for review and consideration of releasing executive session minutes. But I would say that we take a 5-minute recess before we do that.
Mayor,
Yes.
this is Barbara. You'll have enough there if I leave the meeting now, thank you.
All right. Thank you.